Hi guys, in today's video we are going to take a look at a new model from the Seiko Presage line, the Seiko Style 60s. More specifically, the reference SRPG05J1. But before we take a closer look, let's go back and see the inspiration behind this new wave of Seiko Presage models. As the name suggests, these new models draw their inspiration from the 1960s, more specifically from 1964, with the Seiko Crown Chronograph reference 5719, which was made as the official watch for the 1964 Tokyo Olympic Games. These games saw for the first time Seiko as its official timekeeper and pushed Seiko to develop their first watch with a chronograph function. Jumping forward to 2019, Seiko released the limited edition reference SRQ0031 to commemorate the 55th anniversary of the Crown Chronograph. This model shared many design aspects as the original, such as the bezel, dial color, dial design, and case shape, while also incorporating some modern touches with the addition of subdials for the chronograph registers, a second chronograph pusher, an automatic movement, and a larger case size. 1 year later, in 2020, Seiko continued to pay tribute to the Crown Chronograph by releasing 3 more limited edition pieces: the reference SPB 129J1 in green, the 127 in beige, and the 131 in black. These models lose the chronograph function and opt for a simple 3-handed design, retaining many design cues from the reference 5719, while drawing more vintage inspiration by adding a date window at the 3 o'clock position, something which was found on another reference of the Crown Chronograph, the reference 5717. Now we arrive to the present day, with Seiko releasing 7 new models, all of which are non-limited editions. You have the SRPG03J1 in white with a black bezel, gold indices, and gold handset, the SRPG05J1 in blue, the SRPG07J1 in green, and the SRPG09 in all black with a NATO strap. All of those 4 are simple 3-hand designs with a date at 3, while the SSA 423J1 in white with a black bezel, the SSA 425J1 in all black, and the SSA 426 in black and rose gold on a NATO strap omit that date window and feature a 24-hour subdial and a cutout where you can see the escapement. Taking a closer look at this reference SRPG05J1, which I have in front of me, we have a stainless steel case with a 40.8mm diameter, 12mm thickness, 47mm lug-to-lug, 20mm lug width, 50 meters water resistant, a boxed hardlex crystal, and a fixed aluminium bezel. The bracelet is a brushed 3-piece reversed oyster style construction that is 20mm wide, tapers down to 18, then comes back to 20 at the clasp, which has Seiko engraved on it. The clasp uses a twin trigger release system, which opens to reveal a very nicely milled clasp with a smooth beveled edge, something that is fantastic to see from Seiko at this price point. The bracelet has solid female end links, which allows the bracelet to droop straight down, allowing this watch to wear really well, especially on smaller wrists. Something that also helps this watch to wear and look smaller are the narrow pointed down lugs, an element that is very reminiscent of the original Crown chronographs and other watches from the 1960s. The case itself features a high polish on the sides, circular brushing on the tops of the lugs, while a polished bevel edge divides the 2 finishes. Additionally, the thickness of the case only being 12mm allows for the watch to feel more comfortable on wrist. Another aspect that is nice to see from Seiko at this price point is a signed crown, engraved with a simple S. The crown has a push-pull operation with 3 positions. The 0 position is where you can hand wind the movement, 1 click out is where you can change the date display, and 2 clicks out is where you can hack the movement and set the time. Flipping the watch over, we have the 4R35 movement inside, an automatic movement which operates at 21,600 vibrations per hour, 3 Hz, has 23 joules, and features 41 hours of power reserve. As mentioned earlier, the movement also features hand winding and hacking. The movement also has very basic decorations, with stripes on the movement itself and a semi-skeletonized gold-plated rotor, all of which is visible through a display screw-down mineral caseback. Flipping the watch over again reveals a beautiful sunburst navy blue dial, which along with the applied polished indices reflect light and showcase that wonderful sunburst effect. All of the details present on the dial are either from the 5719 or the 5717, with the indices, Dauphine hands, lume pips, and dial ring detailing coming from the 5719, while the minute track and the frame date window coming from the 5717. This combination of details from the two references create a very clean and striking dial. Another thing that adds to the cleanliness of the dial is the very minimal amount of text that is present. There's only the words Seiko at the top of the inner dial, Presage then automatic at the bottom of the inner dial, and Made in Japan and the movement number at the very bottom edge of the dial. Overall, the details present on the dial, 50 meters of water resistance, the push-pull crown, polished case, and narrow lugs, steer this watch more towards the dressier side. However, the fixed timing bezel, the brushed oyster-style bracelet, the loomed hands, and the drilled lugs add an element of sport, which allows this watch to be a relatively good choice for everyday wear. I like this piece. It is just dressy enough to be a good semi-formal wear, while being sporty enough to wear on a somewhat daily basis. However, the lack of micro-adjustment on the clasp, a fixed bezel, a push-pull crown, and only 50 meters of water resistance takes away from the practicality and durability of this watch and steers it towards the dressier side. And the fact that it is included in the Presage line steers it completely in that direction. Another thing that I like is how you get a very nicely milled clasp and a signed crown, something that has become rather uncommon for Seiko to include at this price point. However, something that is unfortunately not uncommon for Seiko at this price point is misaligned components. On this watch, the bezel is ever so slightly to the left. It's not noticeable from afar, but if you take a close look at it, it's almost impossible to ignore, especially since you cannot rotate that bezel. Another thing that is almost impossible to ignore once you see it are the gaps between the end links and lugs. The fitment issues continue down to the clasp, where you can see the parts that make up the milled clasp moving around. However, the inclusion of that milled clasp, a signed crown, female end links, and complexity of finishing slightly make up for those imperfections and show some steps in the right direction for Seiko at the lower price points. This piece is very nicely styled with all of the vintage design cues, while also adding a modern touch and with modern construction. If you like vintage watches of any kind, you will appreciate this watch. Even if you aren't all too familiar with vintage watches, you may still find this watch attractive. Now the price, $675 Canadian dollars. At that price, you get an amazing vintage-inspired watch with a beautiful dial that is very hard to compete with at this price point. In closing, this new wave of Seiko Presage models pay close tribute to their original inspiration while also adding some modern elements to make these watches very stylish and easy to wear. With that, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this. Feel free to check out our website to see other Seiko models, and see you in the next video.